January 8th, 2025. CES, Las Vegas. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang answers one analyst question about quantum computers. 15 words, maybe 20. By the closing bell that same day, $10 billion have vanished from quantum computing stocks. Here's what makes that strange. Within about 90 days of each other, Google and Microsoft were both telling the world quantum computing had already arrived. Working chips, real breakthroughs, front-page headlines. So either the world's biggest chip maker is wrong, or two of the biggest tech companies on Earth are wrong. Someone here is selling the future years ahead of schedule, and by the end, you'll be able to guess who. Welcome to the Tomorrow Stack, the technology about to reshape your world before it does. Because underneath all of it sits a technology that could crack open the encryption protecting your bank account, your medical records, your government's most guarded secrets, or a technology that's still, by its own creator's quiet admission, decades from doing anything useful at all. This is the story of who's telling the truth: Nvidia, Google, Microsoft, or the physicists rolling their eyes at all three. Therefore, to understand why Huang's sentence hit so hard, rewind to December 2024. Google unveils a new chip, Willow. The claim: Willow solved a specific benchmark calculation in under 5 minutes. A calculation that would take the world's fastest classical supercomputer roughly 10 septillion years to finish. Let's actually sit with that number. The universe itself is about 13.8 billion years old. 10 septillion years isn't just a long time, it's that entire universe, born, living, and dying, and being born again, roughly 700 trillion times over. Google framed it as a beyond classical breakthrough. Investors heard quantum supremacy, took it as a green light, and quantum stocks took off. But it doesn't stop there. 2 months later, Microsoft goes bigger still. Their new Majorana 1 chip, they say, uses an entirely new state of matter, something called a topological qubit, built to be naturally resistant to the errors that plague every other quantum design. Microsoft's promise? Industrial-scale quantum computers, not in decades, but in years. In a single 90-day stretch, two of the most valuable companies on the planet are both telling investors, the future you were promised just quietly arrived. But then, at that very same CES stage, the mood curdles. Jensen Huang stands up and pours cold water on both of them. Very useful. Quantum computers, he tells analysts, are 15 years away on the early side, 30 years away on the late side. Investors don't wait for nuance. IonQ drops 39% that day. Rigetti drops 45%. D-Wave drops 36%. By the time the dust settles, the entire quantum sector is down 58 to 76% from where it stood just weeks earlier. One sentence from one man at one conference, and billions of dollars simply stop existing. But the story doesn't end with a stock crash. It gets stranger. Scientists start picking apart Microsoft's own claim. Nature, the very journal that published the Majorana 1 research, quietly attaches an editorial note admitting the data do not represent evidence of the breakthrough the company announced to the world. Physicists Henry Legg and Sergei Frolov go further, calling the analysis methodology flawed. So the company promising quantum computers in years, not decades, can't get its own peer reviewers to agree the breakthrough actually happened. Meanwhile, D-Wave CEO Alan Baratz is done being polite. He calls Huang dead wrong. And unlike the Nature paper, he's got receipts. D-Wave is already selling working quantum systems to Real, paying customers MasterCard, NTT Docomo. The company's fiscal 2025 revenue, $24.6 million, up 179% year over year. IonQ separately pulled in roughly $130 million. If you're keeping score at home and it already feels tangled, that's exactly why the like button is sitting right there. Hit it, because this is about to get messier. But here's the therefore nobody saw coming. Watch something almost nobody in Jensen Huang's position ever does. By March 2025, at Nvidia's own self-declared Quantum Day, Huang stands up again and admits he was wrong. He unveils cuda-q, Nvidia's new hybrid quantum classical computing platform, and quantum stocks start clawing their way back from the January wreckage. The same man whose sentence erased $10 billion is now, 3 months later, trying to buy his way back in. Therefore, strip away the press releases, and here's the twist nobody said out loud on that CES stage. Physicists have been telling this exact joke for decades. Quantum computing is always 25 years away. Ask in the 90s, you got 25 years. Ask 10 years ago, you got 25 years. Ask today, plenty of serious researchers will still tell you 25 years. Not because it's a scam, because building a computer out of particles that change the instant you dare to look at them turns out to be brutally, stubbornly hard. Maybe the punchline is also the most accurate forecast in the entire industry. Therefore, the real question isn't which company is right. It's why both bets are being placed at once. So, who's actually right? Maybe both. And that's the genuinely unsettling part. In August 2024, the US government finalized 3 brand new encryption standards, FIPS 203, 204, and 205, engineered specifically to survive a quantum computer that, depending on who you ask, doesn't fully exist yet. The plan? Retire today's standard encryption, RSA 2048, by 2030. Phase it out completely by 2035. Why move that fast for a machine some of the same industry insists is decades away? 2 words. Harvest now, decrypt later. Somewhere, right now, an adversary may already be stockpiling your encrypted data, banking on cracking it open the moment a real quantum machine shows up. So the smartest people on the planet are simultaneously betting billions that quantum computing works, and spending billions more defending against the exact day it does, without agreeing on when or even if that day arrives. That's not hypothetical. In 2021, the NSA itself warned that adversaries may already be doing exactly that, quietly archiving encrypted traffic they can't read yet, betting on the day they can. And parts of the government aren't waiting for 2030. Starting January 2027, every new national security system the NSA buys has to be built quantum safe from day one, 3 years ahead of NIST's own public deadline. For context, the last time the industry retired a core cryptographic standard, an aging algorithm called SHA-1, NIST started pushing agencies off it back in 2011, and the federal cutoff still isn't until 2030. If a routine algorithm swap takes almost 20 years start to finish, a 2030 deadline for outrunning a fundamentally new kind of computer suddenly looks a lot tighter. If you had to put money on it, is quantum computing 5 years away or another 25? Tell me your bet in the comments. And if you like stories where billion-dollar bets collide head-on with real science, subscribe. That's every one of these right here on the Tomorrow Stack. Because somewhere right now, that hourglass from the top of this video just quietly flipped over again.